The train was coming, fast. The steel rails trembled beneath the weight of the oncoming locomotive, its blaring whistle slicing through the stillness of the forest. Bound tightly to the cold metal tracks, a mother bobcat thrashed against the rough ropes cutting into her flesh. Her 3 tiny cubs mewling helplessly beside her. Every instinct in her frail body screamed for her to protect them. But the cruel bindings held firm. Miles away, Jack Lawson, a 45-year-old former firefighter, was driving home after a long shift at the garage when something made him slam the brakes, a piercing cry. Faint yet desperate. Rolling down his window, he felt a chill run down his spine. It wasn't human. It was something wild, something in trouble. His gut told him to follow the sound. As he rounded a bend, his breath caught in his throat. There, on the abandoned railway, was a sight that made his blood run cold, a mother bobcat. Tied down like a sacrifice, her cubs clinging to her trembling body. And behind them, no more than 30 seconds away, a hulking freight train barreled toward them at full speed. Jack had one shot, one impossible chance to save them before it was too late. The night was eerily silent, the only sound a cold wind whispering through the barren trees. On a long-forgotten stretch of abandoned train tracks, a mother bobcat lay bound to the icy steel rails, her body weak from hunger and exhaustion. Her golden eyes, once fierce, now flickered with panic as she struggled against the cruel ropes cutting into her fur. 3 tiny cubs huddled close, their frail bodies shivering, their soft whimpers lost in the vast emptiness of the forest. Then, in the distance, a deep, haunting whistle pierced the silence. The ground trembled. A train was coming. The mother let out a desperate, heart-wrenching wail. Jack Lawson gripped the steering wheel, his heart pounding as he followed the eerie, distant cry. The road was dark, winding through a dense forest, but something told him he didn't have time to hesitate. As he rounded a sharp bend, his headlights swept across the tracks, and his stomach dropped. A mother bobcat, bound tightly with thick ropes, writhed in panic, her cubs pressed against her, their tiny bodies trembling. But what made Jack's blood run cold was the sight beyond them, a massive freight train barreling forward, its whistle shrieking like a scream in the night. Without thinking, Jack slammed the brakes, threw open the door, and sprinted toward the doomed family. He had only seconds. Back at his cabin, deep in the forest, Jack Lawson carefully tended to the bobcat family. The mother, though weak and injured, never took her wary eyes off him. The cubs, too young to understand the danger they had escaped, nestled together in a warm blanket by the fireplace. Jack's 16-year-old son, Eli, watched from a distance. Ever since his mother's passing, he had grown distant, retreating into himself. But something about the fragile creatures stirred something in him. At first hesitant, Eli began helping, feeding the cubs, changing their bedding, watching over them as they slept. Slowly, the once silent boy found his voice again, bonding with his father through the unlikely connection of the rescued bobcats. For the first time in months, Jack felt a sense of hope watching Eli care for the bobcats. The boy, once withdrawn and quiet, now spent hours with the cubs, his hands gentle as he nursed them back to health. But the newfound peace was shattered one evening when Jack's neighbor casually mentioned something unsettling. "I saw some kids messing around near the tracks a few days ago," the old man muttered. Jack turned to Eli, who had frozen in place. His face paled, guilt flashing in his eyes. "We didn't mean for it to go that far," Eli whispered, his voice trembling. "It was just a joke." Jack's heart sank. His own son, along with his friends, Carter and Lucas, had tied the mother bobcat to the tracks, never expecting real danger. The weight of his actions crushed Eli. But Jack knew the boy had to make it right. Determined to make amends, Eli, Carter, and Lucas dedicated themselves to the bobcat's care. Carter crafted small wooden toys for the cubs, while Lucas, the quietest of the three, formed an unbreakable bond with the runt of the litter. As the days passed, trust grew, between the boys, the animals, and even Jack. Then, the day came. Standing at the forest's edge, Jack opened the crate. The mother bobcat stepped out first, turning once to meet Eli's gaze. A silent understanding passed between them before she disappeared into the trees, her cubs bounding after her. Eli exhaled, feeling lighter, knowing he had finally done something right.